So Courtney and I are the career team now here at Lambda. It's nice to meet everyone. My name's Sabrina. A little background on me. I was a tech recruiter for about 5 years, worked for VMware and a couple of staffing agencies. So I kind of get the, recruiting side of the job search, which kind of gives everyone a little bit of a leg up. I know what recruiters are looking for. But I joined Dev Bootcamp about a year ago. About 6 months ago. Feels like it's been a year, but kind of fell in love with the whole career coach side of things, joined Lambda, and I was really excited that we get to kind of create this program and start from scratch. But Dev Bootcamp is where I met Courtney, and I'll let her do a little bit of an intro for herself as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Courtney. Prior to Lambda, I was at Dev Bootcamp, like Sabrina mentioned. I was in many different roles. I was there for 3.5 years, so I definitely have the whole bootcamp coding school thing down pat at this point. I was in everything from admissions to I ran the campus, and I also did a little bit of career coaching in there as well. And before Dev Bootcamp, I was in a recruiting department for a big corporation. So between Sabrina and I, we definitely feel like we have your best interests at heart, and we can definitely help you along the way for your careers.
Thank you, Courtney. So because we're just getting to know you guys, I know it's always not that fun to do the intros for everyone, but if you could just say your name and where you're located, that would be fantastic. And anyone can start.
Hey, I'm Matthew Jackson. I'm based in the Oakland area in California.
Hey, my name's Eric, and I'm also based in Los Angeles area around Northridge.
Hey, I'm Tyler. I'm based in Wheeling, West Virginia, near Pittsburgh.
I'm Ryan. I am based in Tampa, Florida.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm Dylan, and I'm about an hour outside of Philly.
I'm Roland. I am in Tracy, California, or near Livermore. Yeah.
I think that was everyone, right? Well, it's nice to meet you guys. We are very excited to start working with you guys. CS1 kind of got they were a little bit of the guinea pig phase, but we are here now. We have all the workshops ready for you guys. We have basically everything ready for you guys to get started in your job search. Today's workshop is mainly around personal branding, working on your resume, and LinkedIn. So really kind of the foundation of your job search. After this week and the rest of Monday through Friday, you guys should be meeting with Courtney and I, and we'll tell you, we're going to split you guys up and meeting with us on one-on-ones, just doing resume reviews. So strictly it should be about an hour long one-on-one, just so you know. So it'll be a little bit of a longer one, going over your resume, kind of just getting to know you and doing a little bit of a background on you as well. So we will get started with the first workshop. And if you guys have any questions, just feel free to either ask in the chat or you can just interrupt and ask. We can't see your faces, so I can't see if you're raising your hands or anything like that. So just feel free to just ask any questions. All right, let me share my screen with you guys. Cool. So this first slide and this first workshop is about professional branding. So your professional brand is essentially what you're sharing with employers. It's how you want employers to see you, and basically how you want everyone to see you. And we're going to go off of basically what we learn here is what you're going to be including into your resume and your LinkedIn. So personal branding is kind of like your elevator pitch of tell me about yourself. So this is something that not necessarily that you should rehearse all the time, but just that you know at the top of your head, like, this is how I want to present myself to employers and to the world. And a lot of times you can actually use your personal statement from your resume or your LinkedIn and turn it into just a brand statement in general. So we're just going to go over in this workshop kind of why you need to have a personal brand and personal statement and how you write one. And mostly we're going to be helping you guys out with that, but really it's about, like I said, trying to make sure people know who you are right off the bat. Especially as on the professional side, you want employers to know certain things about you, obviously positive things. So what's your flavor? So kind of just going through like society and basically what we know, you want your personal statement to be something that right off the top of someone's head, they're like, oh, this person is hardworking, etc. So certain people, aka celebrities like Kim Kardashian, they have a stigma or they have a personal statement about them that people know in general. So, you know, you wouldn't write a book report with Kim Kardashian. Obviously, she has her own style and her own personal statement and her own personal brand, and it has nothing to do with academics or writing a book report. Same with Tina Fey. So her personal brand is all about like being real and being essentially a feminist. So a lot of her movies and what she does is centered around that. That's her personal brand. So creating your brand. So what you want to focus on when you are creating a brand statement is who you are as a person. So kind of like some key factors about yourself, what you do. So when you graduate Lambda, what you do is software development. So that's what you have gone through the program for. That is what you are now. Who you do it for. So your family, people you care about, the universe, anyone you do what you do for, and what you're known for. So something that's going to differentiate you from everyone else. So a couple of brand statement do's. So you want to make sure that a brand statement is almost like a cover letter, except it should be a lot shorter and get straight to the point. So you guys are going to hear me talk about this a little bit later, but cover letters are a little bit outdated. I don't recommend you sending a cover letter every time you apply to a position. The drawback is that most recruiters won't even read your cover letter. So it's kind of not a waste of time, but a little bit of a waste of time. So you want a brand statement is a way to kind of express yourself and have that summary. It's just in a shorter form. So you can have it either on your resume or on your LinkedIn or on both, but it's just a shorter version of your cover letter essentially. And it should be a little bit more like personality based. I know a lot of times cover letters are kind of just the generic, you just write it for the same company every time. Your brand statement should be a little bit more unique to yourself. So differentiate yourself from other people, grab attention. You want to talk about your skills and values, but I wouldn't condense it all into one little short summary. So maybe just your most valued skill is how I would put it. Couple of brand statement don'ts. I wouldn't make it cliche or like very cheesy or corny. Like this is a statement that's expressing you. Unless you want to be, quirky, you can do that. I just would try to keep it a little bit more on the professional side. You still want to make it, about you, but you don't want to make it inappropriate in any way. Don't ever fake it till you make it. Don't put anything in your brand statement that you haven't done or that is not true. Anything on your resume or your LinkedIn is fair game for an interviewer to talk about. So you never want to put anything in there that's false, because then you're going to have to tell them that or make up a story, and it's going to be pretty obvious. So don't make it impersonal. You still want to show your personality through your brand statement. And don't make it super vague. You want to make sure that you're kind of straightforward, straight to the point. Now we can stop a little bit. This is kind of just an activity just to get to know you guys a little bit as well. But Kind of just wanted to go around the circle and just have 3 words that your friends would use to describe you, and maybe 3 words that you'd want your future employer to describe you as. Let's start. Anyone can start. So kind of just tell me a little bit, like, I guess, few words about describing yourself and how you would want your employer to see you. And make sure you're writing these down, because these are things that you can put in your brand statement.
I guess like 3 words that I would use to describe myself towards the resume would be creative, hardworking, and a team player.
Perfect. Anyone else? Everyone should be going. We just want to hear what, right now, right off the top of your head, like, how would you want people to describe you?
I would say easygoing, fun to work with, and hardworking.
Perfect.
Good energy, adaptable, and I'm still working on a 3rd.
That's okay. That's what we're here for.
Logical, creative, and organized.
Check it once.
Funny, creative, and hardworking.
I would say fun, professional, and motivated.
Awesome. Did everyone go? I think that was everyone. So yeah, so like I was saying before, your personal statement is how you want the world to see you. And we can work on this when we're going through your resume and your LinkedIn, but just kind of start formulating in your head, like, this is how I would want an employer to see me. This is how I would want the world to see me. One of the things that I know happens a lot with people coming out of programs like Lambda is imposter syndrome. So you guys are graduating this program. You worked really hard. You're going to complete it. You're coming out as software developers. So you want the world to see you as a software developer. I know it's tough when you first graduate. You're like, I don't know. Like, I know some things, but I don't know everything. But you are literally coming out of this program as a software developer. You did everything that you needed to do to complete the program. You've now had hands-on training and hands-on projects. Like, you've created things with the knowledge that you have. So just remember that and try to incorporate that into your brand statement. You are now software developers. Let's move on to, so kind of the bulk of this next one is going to be resumes, which is really going to be kind of the basis of your job search. If you don't have your resume created, you can't really do a job search. And I know this is going to be a lot of information for you guys, so feel free to ask questions if you have them during this presentation. Cool. So creating your resume, create your resume like a boss. Going back to what I was mentioning earlier, so Courtney and I, for the rest of the week, you guys should be scheduling one-on-ones with us, and we want you to bring what you currently have to the table. So if you want to start working on it after this workshop and then send it in, that works too. But really, we want to kind of start from scratch and build out your resume that way. So your resume in a nutshell. Basically, don't do this, but resumes are always tricky for some people. They're never fun to create, but that's what we're here for. We're going to be helping you put in all the relevant information that you need into your resume and making sure that it looks good. That's literally what these next workshops are going to be about, and this one-on-one. So a couple key things. Don't ever type your resume in Comic Sans or any crazy fonts. You want to make sure it still looks professional. We will be looking at some templates that are a little bit more designy and that you can kind of add some flair into there, but you should never make it look unprofessional. So Comic Sans is probably out, or any crazy funky fonts. You shouldn't have multiple pages. Really, you should try to fit your experience into one page and really highlight the things that are relevant. The only instance where you probably would have multiple pages is if you've had over 10 years of experience. And that's going to be on each person. It's going to be different for everyone, but you want to try to keep it on one page. Don't title your resume.pdf. You always want to put your name. If you can't think, I would usually put either your name and then software developer, or just first initial, last name. But you never want to have resumes. So recruiters get 1,000 resumes a day. If all of them say resume, they're not even going to look at it. So make sure you're putting your name somewhere in your resume title. Don't add fluff. This goes back to what we just talked about your personal statement. So you never want to say anything that's not true on your resume, because an interviewer, they can speak to anything on your resume. So if you have it on your resume, it better be true and you better be able to talk about it. And you don't want to add fluff anyways, because you want to make sure that your resume is getting to the point. This kind of goes back to the one-page resume kind of deal, and you don't want your resume to have to be reading through paragraphs of information. Everything should be kind of front and center. Don't ever include your whole physical address. I know that sounds silly, but it's kind of an outdated thing to do. And it really just depends. So for instance, if you're going to be looking in multiple cities when you graduate, you don't want to add any address. That way, if you're looking to move to New York, you can say, you don't put an address on there. And if a recruiter calls you from New York, you can just say, I'm currently relocating there. So you never really want to put your whole address on there, unless if you're in Austin and you're looking for a job in Austin, you can put Austin, Texas, but not your whole physical address. They don't need to know where your house is and all of those things. Don't ever add references. So if a company or recruiter needs your references, they'll ask for them. They do not need to be on your resume. That's also kind of an outdated thing to do. So some do's on your resume. Definitely put your phone number on your resume, a good phone number that they can reach you at. Make it personal to yourself. Add some personal sparkle. It is important that your resume is not boring. And when I say that, a lot of people, and including myself, so we've all had that resume that's a black and white resume. It looks exactly the same as everyone else's. We're trying to avoid that. So even if your resume looks like that today, it's not going to look like that when we're done with you. Add some color to your resume. So you don't want to add more than 3 colors max. I would say probably 2 colors is your best bet, but you want to add some kind of color to it, some kind of formatting. You want it to stick out a little bit, not be overwhelming, but you do want it to stick out. Definitely add your degree type. So no matter what kind of degree you have, if you don't have a degree, don't worry about it. But if you do, you want to make sure you're being specific. So associate's degree, bachelor's, master's, etc. So in theory, if we could create a perfect summary, this is kind of how it would be laid out. So your name at the top, you would have your contact information near your name. You would have your summary. So your summary is your personal statement. Some people choose to have a summary. You don't have to. It just depends. If you don't really have a ton of experience and you don't really have a ton of stuff to put on your resume, you want to put a summary up there. The other instance where you would have a summary is if you are a career changer. So if you've been, for instance, a lawyer for 10 years and then you're now making the move to a software developer, you kind of want to explain that a little bit, which is where this is where you would do that in your summary. You want your projects front and center. So depending on how your resume is laid out, if you have a column type resume, the project would be at the top in one of your columns, followed by experience. And then your skills and education. So a lot of people think that skills and education needs to be at the top of your resume. They don't. So you want to highlight your projects and your experience more than anything. This is your hands-on. This is what you've created. This is the bulk of basically your software development. So you want to make sure you are highlighting projects and experience, and then skills and education can be either at the bottom if you're doing just like a standard page resume, or if it's a column resume, you can do that in the left column or the right column, whatever the smaller column is, basically. So this is what I was kind of talking about with kind of like the traditional and more conservative type resume, and this is a more progressive type resume, which there's nothing wrong with this resume on the left. It's just going to be dependent on the type of role you're looking for and the type of company you're applying for. So like the HPs and the Dells of the world, they would probably prefer this more traditional and conservative resume. Some startups and more progressive type companies are going to prefer the progressive resume. So the more kind of unique looking, colorful type resume. So it's really just going to be dependent on your personality as well, and what kind of role you're looking for, what kind of company you're looking to be in. So this is another thing that we talked about. So this is with, there's 2 different colors on here. This is 3 different colors and 3 or 4 different colors. It starts to get a little bit crazy looking. You don't want your resume to look like a child did it. So try to keep it, you want it to be colorful, but you want it to be also kind of more professional, colorful. So here's a few different summaries that people have on their resumes. So kind of what we were saying before, you can have a summary, you don't have to have one, but you want to make sure that you are, so with your summary, you want to make sure that it's short and sweet. You don't want your summary on your resume to be too long. On your LinkedIn, your summary can be as long as you want it to be. But on your resume, you don't want it to take up a lot of space. So short and sweet, but also you don't want it to be anything like cheesy or crazy like that. Especially if you're a career changer, it's going to depend on if you're trying to explain why you went from this career to this career, it's going to be a little bit different. But these are some examples of what a summary looks like. So this one at the top, you never want to say that you're seeking a role. It's kind of a red flag. People know that you're looking for a job. You have your resume posted, you're interviewing, people know that you're looking for a job. You don't need to put this anywhere on your LinkedIn or your resume. Thanks, Ryan. I will do that. And then the spark to become a web developer. So this is a little bit different. This is basically saying, you want to, this is another career progression and a career change kind of thing. So this person is explaining, this is why I became a software developer, but it's still short and sweet. It's 2 sentences, short and sweet. And then this one is also, it's a good one. It's not as in-depth as the second one, but it's still showing, this is why I became a software developer, reducing carbon dioxide emissions. That's what that person wants to do. So that's not a good one. This is a good example. And this is another good example. So for your projects, kind of what we were saying before, so your projects are always going to be front and center. And the way that you want to kind of put your project in the format is going to be project name. You always want to have like a blurb, so maybe like a sentence or 2 of what your project actually does. If you were working on a group project, so for your capstone projects, you'd want to say exactly what you did in that project. So if you did the front end, you want to say you did the front end. You always want to put the project link. So I know a lot of you are going to have your GitHubs actually on your, like where your contact information is. You still want to put the link, because if you're working with the recruiter and they don't know how to navigate GitHub, they're not going to be able to get to your project basically. So make sure you're putting the direct link for your project. And then you always want to list out exactly what technologies you used. So it may seem repetitive because you're going to have this on your resume quite a bit, but when a recruiter is doing a keyword search, the more times it pops up on your resume, the better. So you want React all over your resume, or you want, whatever technology you use, especially if it's a strong suit, you want to put that all over your resume. So a couple of ways to, when you're doing your experience, a lot of you are going to have Lambda school as an actual like listed under your experience, and you want to try to be a little bit more detailed when you're just describing basically what your experience is. So if you have a job title there, you want to make sure you're explaining exactly what you did, especially if you're like, okay, you're a manager, so they know that you train employees. So you want to try to do quantitative things. So make your resume stick out. So instead of saying, just train employees on computer science team, you executed immersive training for 16 employees who then went on to create 400 prototypes for computer power supply sources. Like, you want to be specific, and you want to include numbers. Numbers always catch attention. Same thing here. So this person, I worked on a social media campaign for a Fortune 500 company. Or you want to put an accomplishment. So I was able to get 5,000 new likes, over 100 fresh sales leads while working on a social media campaign for whatever company. So again, be specific, be quantitative. You want numbers to highlight on your resume and type of numbers. It sounds silly, but it's just, that's what we focus on. Using the PAR method for your resume and kind of just when you're describing things in your descriptions, in your job descriptions. So identify a responsibility or an issue at work, discuss how you address the problem, and you want to talk about the results of your actions. So basically you're highlighting your accomplishments. At the end of the day, most people will know exactly what you're doing with your job titles. So you want to make sure that you are basically describing exactly what your accomplishments are. And any type of, if you train somebody, you want to make sure you're explaining how you train them. So being pretty specific. Again, quantify your accomplishments. So did you increase productivity? Did you manage anybody? How many people did you manage? Did you work within a tight deadline? So a lot of these things you can actually transfer to what you did at Lambda. So you were working in a team, you did pair programming. These are a lot of things that you need to look into and transfer these into your experience under Lambda. Pro tip, have someone else write your resume for you. So this is essentially what Courtney and I are going to be doing when we meet with you for your one-on-one. We are basically taking a look at your resume, and how we would write it is how we're going to tell you. Like I said, at the end of the day, it's your resume, so take our suggestions with a grain of salt. These are just things that we have learned over the years. These are things that we think recruiters are going to be looking into, but it's your resume, so we want it to be customized to yourself. We want you to be comfortable with your resume. So these are just a couple of things when you're looking into, I guess, having somebody else write your resume, or how you think you would want somebody else to see it. Think about performance reviews that you've had, things that people have highlighted, positive things about you. Those are things that you want to put on your resume. Any type of volunteer work or accomplishments, those are things you want to highlight in your resume. And have your mentors look at them. So people from Lambda, Courtney and myself, have other people look at your resume and give you suggestions. It's always helpful. So here are a couple of resumes, kind of just examples of what we're talking about. So this is what I was saying when you have a column type resume. I always prefer column resumes because you're able to put kind of more information into one page. So a couple things about Gordon's. So he has a great description of what he did at Dev Bootcamp. He has his projects on here. A couple things that I would change is that you never want to put student. So he graduated from Dev Bootcamp. He is now officially a software developer. So even with Lambda, you never want to put student under Lambda. You're going to want to say software developer. A student is kind of a red flag for you're still learning. You're still learning how to be a software developer, but you've gone through the program. So you are completely a software developer now. So that should always be your title. Under his projects, he probably should have put a link, kind of what I was saying before. He has his GitHub, but if you don't know how to navigate GitHub, you're not going to be able to find this project. So you always want to put the link and make sure that it's pretty obvious, exactly you just click on it and go straight to your project. The other thing too, a lot of these formats that you guys are going to see are going to have you rate your skills. I would never rate your skills, so you don't have to put that on there. I would take that off. You don't want to rate your skills, because if he's saying he's only a 2 at Java, if he's talking to someone and they don't really, they're not really looking for Java, they could think he's an expert. So you never want to underrate yourself or rate yourself, period. So this is an example of what I was talking about before. So most of us at some point have had this resume. And if you have this resume right now, it's okay. We are going to fix it. But this is exactly what I'm talking about. So this type of resume is very outdated. She has her whole address on here. It's all in black and white. It's all kind of condensed. There's no columns. Her education's at the top. So kind of everything that we talked about not doing, this person has on their resume. So you want to make sure that, like I was saying before, so some of these things, this should have been at the top. Like, these are awards. So you want to highlight your achievements. You want to highlight your experience. Your education can go at the bottom. A lot of times people just want to see if you have a degree. They don't really care about all the other things. Like, they don't care about GPA. They don't care that you're on the dean's list. So none of those things are relevant. Same with this. So this is another example of what we would tell you not to do. So right away, she lists her skills right off the bat. You don't want your skills at the top like this. You want, again, highlight your professional experience. Her education should be at the bottom. And even her descriptions are very much, they're not very descriptive. They are kind of just vague, just like kind of what you would find like in a dictionary. She should have talked about her accomplishments or any type of like leadership that she had done. Boring resume. So this is a cool format. And so kind of what I was saying before, it's going to be dependent on what type of company you're looking for. So if it was a more progressive type company or startup, this would be a really cool resume format to use. She has all of her information, all her contact information, including her GitHub. She has her skills, but it's in the left column. And this obviously is like the more important column. So it's off to the side, but she still has them listed out. She has her education at the bottom. She actually has a summary. So her statement, she called it her statement. She can have it up here. You can have your summary really wherever you want to, but she has it up at the top. But she also has her projects up at the top. She has her links up here. She describes what the project is. This is exactly how we would want you guys to have your projects. And again, so she has everything kind of, it seems repetitive because she has everything listed out like multiple times, but when they're looking at your resume, they're going to look at keywords. So the more times it pops up on your resume, the better. The only thing I would change about this is the student web developer, because she's not a student anymore. She graduated the program. She's now a full-blown web developer. So same with this one. So she also has a summary. So Krista was a career changer. She was basically in social services before she became a developer. So she explains that in her summary a little bit. She talks about why she got into software development, like what made her get into this field, into this industry. She lists all her projects with the links. She lists exactly what she's done in all those projects, as well as the languages, technology she used. She has her experience here. And even if you have experience that is not software development related, if you've been doing it for years, or that's what your degree is in, or if it's what you've been doing for the bulk of your time, you still want to put it in here. You may not have like a ton of descriptive, bullets, but you have to have it in here, especially because you don't want gaps. You don't want, leading up for 5 years, you don't have anything until Lambda. You want to make sure you're putting exactly what you were doing, because people want to know, like, oh, so, what were you doing before Lambda? They want to see that you have working experience, period, professional experience. She also has her volunteer work on here. If you have room on your resume, 100% put your volunteer or like activities that you've done, things like that. I don't know if she has it on here, but if you have hackathons, if you've done hackathons, you can put those on your resume as well. And you can actually put them under either education or volunteering, or under activities or experience. Hackathons can really go anywhere on your resume. So this is an example of a resume that I think is a little bit overwhelming. So if you are going for a design or like a UI or UX job, 100% you can use this resume because it shows off like some graphic design, some cool things. If you're going for a software development resume, or even just like trying to get into a company like an IBM or a Dell, this resume is not going to fly. It's a little bit too much. Again, they shouldn't be rating their skills, but it's a little bit too much, a little bit in your face. But at the end of the day, like I was saying before, if you want to go for it's all going to depend on the type of job you're looking for and the type of company you're looking for. I would never have this on a resume. So when can I start? It's a little bit forward, but some of it's good. So they have a good summary. They're good colors. They have things in columns. But again, it's going to be dependent on what type of role you're looking for. So here is a little bit, it's kind of a mix between a conservative and progressive, so that she has it in columns. She has her projects listed out here. You want to make sure, again, like most of her experience was her projects. So she didn't put any real, like, I guess, working experience. She put her university, she put her projects, that's what she wanted to highlight, and her boot camp experience. Short and sweet. She didn't add a bunch of fluff to the resume. This is kind of how you want your layout to look like. So because she had columns, she has her skills and her experience and her education on one side and her projects on the other side, but her projects is the main bulk of her resume. Again, this resume is a little bit probably too progressive for most people. And to me, this resume doesn't describe, I guess, what this person was doing. So they don't have descriptions under what they were doing. They don't have any type of like accomplishments. You never want to say anything negative on your resume or in an interview in general. So not my cup of tea, that whole section should have been eliminated. You should never have that section anywhere on your resume. But again, a good thing to know about this resume is that they do have interests and they have things that they've done outside of work. If you have space on your resume, 100% you can add those things. And on LinkedIn, you can add anything. So we can talk about LinkedIn a little bit later, but this person probably should have taken this whole section out. And it's a little bit hard to follow. It's a hard to read resume. So just be cognizant. Have somebody else look at your resume. If they're like, oh, I don't know about this, then maybe reconsider the template you're using. This is another example of one of those black and white resumes. So this is exactly why I tell people to use columns, because if you try to stack everything and you have a ton of experience, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to be really condensed. It's going to be hard to read. People probably won't read it. And you don't want it to be like a boring resume like this. And this person, I mean, obviously they're going for a different type of role. She's a JD candidate. So, maybe that's how lawyers do their resumes a lot of times. But for a developer, like, they don't want to see this. They don't want to see all of your experience and education, everything condensed into basically one blurb, one paragraph. So these are a couple of different resume template tools that Courtney and I have used in the past. I prefer Credle. So Canva is going to be a little bit more of those designy type resume templates that some of the ones that we looked at. Credle is going to have kind of a mix of both. So they have some designy type resumes, but most of them are a little bit on the conservative side. But there's 1,000 different resume template websites out there. These are just ones that we've used in the past that we've seen that are successful, but feel free to play with templates. You can create 2 different resumes, 3 different resumes if you want to. You just have to make sure that you're comfortable with it and that it highlights all of the relevant information. And you guys are going to get with us. So we'll be able to tell you, like, this is what you should have on your resume. But aside from that, like, the template is completely up to you. It's very customizable. Don't let your dreams be dreams, guys. We're gonna make sure that you guys get the best jobs possible with your resumes. Cool. I'm gonna stop and see if anyone has questions, because I know that was like a lot of information at one time.
Are most job applications online?
Yes.
Okay, so I was like, because I saw links like, so they don't send them like paper, no paper, right?
No, I mean, it's kind of again a little bit of an outdated process to send a paper resume. Most of the time, it's going to be they're on online applications, or you're sending them via email. So either way, they'll be able to download your resume and open up the links. Some people will actually have, instead of putting like the actual links on there, they'll like, I guess, put their link to the job title. They'll link it to their job or their project title. I always recommend doing the whole link just in case, like for some reason that doesn't work. But yeah, most of your applications are going to be online.
Okay, so I don't have to drive all the way to SF or Silicon Valley just to look for a job then?
No, you
All
do.
right. So I can't just walk up front like, are you guys hiring?
Yeah,
Like
I wouldn't do that. But you know what? So the only reason you would have like your resume in your hand is if you went to like maybe a hiring event. But even then, like that's also, it's up to you. You can hand out your resumes if you want to. A lot of times at hiring events, they'll say, hey, like, here's my card. Send me your email send me your resume via email. So, it's not ever like a bad idea to just have like some of your resumes like in hand, like in paper form. But for the most part, you're going to be we are going to be sending your resumes to employers, or you're going to be applying directly online where you upload your resume. So.
I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the 10-second rule, but do most majority companies go about that way, or do they just actually like thoroughly read through your resume?
So it just depends. So I was a technical recruiter, and I will tell you that I didn't spend probably more than like a few minutes on a resume. I don't know about 10 seconds. That's like it's a very short amount of time. But really so kind of how it works is that you have basically a resume parser, and it'll pull up keywords for you. So the first glance at a resume is going through keywords. If you pass the keyword basically gatekeeper, then you move on to the next round of reviewing your resumes, which at that point, they're going to be looking at your education. They'll be looking at your experience. They'll probably open up your projects, and they're going to look at your LinkedIn. But the first like glance at your resume is typically a keyword glance. Like they're going to just be looking for keywords. That's why we tell you guys it seems repetitive, but we want you to put your technology stack all over your resume, basically.
Yeah, because I just sort of heard that like, most companies would just like skim through the resume, and basically if they don't see anything that stands out about their resume, they'll just like toss it in the trash or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that happens 100% of the time, but that's pretty relevant. Like that's usually how recruiters they distinguish who they want to move forward with and who they don't. It's typically a keyword search, and they do the same thing on LinkedIn. So again, on LinkedIn, we're going to go over it in just a second, but you want to put your technology stack and like relevant keywords all over your resume.
Cool, thanks.
So what is your opinion on applying directly to a company's website versus like through LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever?
If you can so here's the thing. Some startup companies will not have they don't have a system to apply directly to their site. So if they don't, then you can apply on LinkedIn or Glassdoor or wherever they have it. But most companies, I definitely suggest going directly to the company website and applying through there. And I say that because, so again, these companies have basically a platform that they filter resumes through, and the first round of resumes that get through are people that applied directly through their actual company site. And then they'll filter through from like Glassdoor or LinkedIn or wherever else they have it posted. So if you can find like the company site has it listed on their actual like the company job page, then you should apply there. If not, some companies just don't have a platform for that. A lot of startups don't have a platform for like applications, so they'll send it to a third party to apply through a third party.
Cool, thanks.
Any other questions around resumes?
What would be the best format to send resumes out in, like PDF, Word, something like that?
I would probably tell you PDF, especially if you have any kind of like link to so if you link your project title to your actual like project link, PDF is the best form. And typically most people want a PDF form. They'll usually tell you, like if you send a Word, they'll usually say, hey, do you mind sending a PDF? But that being said, it's if you have a Word document, send that too. It's fine. As long as you have the link, that's really like the only difference between PDF and Microsoft, is that sometimes on Microsoft, your links, if you try to link it up to a Microsoft Word document, it won't do it. So you have to put the actual link on there. So as long as you can open up your links is all that matters. And you should be testing that before you ever send your resume out, so you'll know ahead of time. Anybody else? Cool. I'm going to move on to LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is essentially an extension of your resume. So you want LinkedIn to mirror whatever you have on your resume, but also you can add additional things on LinkedIn, because you're not going to have to go through pages and pages, basically. Let me open that one up. Okay, cool. So hacking LinkedIn. So I have had LinkedIn since basically it was created. So I have over 5,000 connections on LinkedIn, and I'm not going to say I'm a LinkedIn pro, but I have been using it for a very long time. So I kind of know a little bit, like I know how to hack LinkedIn essentially. LinkedIn is about getting noticed. So your resume is showing your professional experience. Your LinkedIn, like I said, is an extension of that, but it's also kind of to brag about yourself. So LinkedIn is where you can put crazy things in your summary, like crazy things that you've done. Like I've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro if you've done that. You can put all of your volunteer work on there, all of your interests, your activities. So all the same things that are in your resume go on LinkedIn, but then on LinkedIn is where you can just like basically brag about yourself. Anything cool that you've done, you want to talk about. Even if it's outside of software development, you still want to mention it, go for it. It's a way to show your personality a little bit more than what you can show on your resume. So everyone should have a LinkedIn profile picture. You never want to leave that blank. It's a red flag if you have a blank LinkedIn picture. But a couple things to be cognizant of. You don't want anything inappropriate, so nothing with like a drink in your hand or anything like that. You want a picture of yourself, as cute as your dog may be, you still want it to be, people want to see what you look like. So you want a picture of yourself, but just don't have a duck face. That's probably a no-no. This is not it's a social media platform, but it's a professional social media platform. So you always want to try to put your best foot forward on LinkedIn. So these are a couple of good pictures. So you want it to be straight on. You want to make sure that if you're cropping the picture, that it's not like super obvious that you cropped it out. Like this one is a little bit obvious. I probably wouldn't have put that one on there, but it's a good direct like headshot. Like he's looking right into the camera. But use your best judgment. If you think the picture looks good, use it. We'll let you know if there's any red flags on your LinkedIn picture. So same thing, summary and headline. So on your LinkedIn, the first thing people see is going to be your picture, your profile picture. You absolutely should also have a background picture, and I'll show you guys. You can change that. You can make it whatever you want as long as it's appropriate. But then you're going to have your header, your headline. So basically, hey everyone, come see how good I look. So here's an example of a good LinkedIn profile. So she has her background picture. A lot of people use like landscape. You can literally put whatever you want, and you can kind of express your personality a little bit in your background picture, just as long as it's appropriate. It literally can be anything. She has a good profile picture. She has her header is what she wants to do or what she currently is. So she's a software engineer. And then if you don't manually change this stuff, it'll pull from your experience. So like for instance, if you look at my LinkedIn, I've manually changed that. Otherwise, if I left it, it would just pull information from my experience. So it would just say like career coach at Lambda. But you can make this header however you want. It can be customized. And then she goes into her summary. So before I was saying your summary on your resume shouldn't be long. It should probably be about 2 to 3 sentences. But on LinkedIn, you can have your whole cover letter if you want it. Like you can have the longest summary of life because it's going to condense it. So it's not like always going to open up to your huge summary. So you can have it if you want to. This is another good example. She has a background picture, good profile picture. And then she has, this is what I'm saying. So she didn't manually change it. So just pulled directly from her last experience, which you can do as well. It's depending on what you have as your experience. So currently she's a software engineer and employee channel, but she has a shorter summary, but she also puts in her GitHub and a couple of ways to reach her. You can absolutely do that as well. If you want to put your contact information, the summary is a good place to put it. So again, this person, they have a background picture, good profile picture. This is what I'm talking about. So he actually has listed a long summary, but you can put whatever summary you want to. He kind of goes into detail about why he got into software development, kind of what he's been doing with software development. So these are the things that you can add on LinkedIn that you can't necessarily add on your resume. So for experience, so kind of what I was saying before, a lot of you guys are not going to have software development experience outside of Lambda. So you want to put your Lambda experience under your job experience, basically, because you spend such a long time doing it. And it's a longer program than most, and it's a more in-depth program than most. And you're learning CS fundamentals. You're learning everything that you need to know to be a software developer. So you want to make sure people know that you went to Lambda, that you graduated the program, that you learned all these things. That is the bulk of your software development experience. That's why you never want to put like student on there, because you're no longer a student. You're going to be graduating from the program. You are now a software developer. And we can go into a little bit. And the other thing too, so what I was getting to, when you're putting your experience prior to Lambda, you still want to make sure you're listing that, because that counts as professional experience. A lot of job descriptions will say, do you have 3 to 5 years of professional experience? And in your mind, you're thinking, I haven't been a software developer for 3 to 5 years, but you've been in the professional or working world for 3 to 5 years. So that counts. Like that's what they're looking for. They want to make sure that you have experience in general. So again, on LinkedIn, it's going to essentially mirror what you have on your resume, but same thing. You want to talk about any type of accomplishment, so annual increase, anything like that, even if it has nothing to do with software development and it's for another position, make sure you're doing the same thing. So everything that all applies. You want to make sure you have numbers in there, quantitative accomplishments, like same thing that goes on your resume, goes on your LinkedIn. And these are just kind of examples of that. So another cool thing that you can do on LinkedIn is actually put your projects, and it actually goes under accomplishments. So I'm going to show you guys an example of that. So this is my LinkedIn page. So when you open up your LinkedIn, this is what your profile is going to look like. So this is what I was saying. Right here is where you can do your own, if you want to, create your own header. It doesn't have to look like mine. It can be whatever you want it to be. But here's where you go ahead and add your projects. So you're going to scroll down and you're going to go under accomplishments and projects. And same thing as with your resume. So you want your project name. You can have a start date, but I would always say that your project's ongoing, just because if you ever wanted to add things to it or go back and fix it, that way there's not like an end date. It's not like this is when I finish my project, because your project may never be done. You always want to put extensions on it or whatever you want to do. So I would always say project ongoing. For LinkedIn, you don't have to add any other contributors. You can just leave yourself, even if it was a group project. Don't worry about that. But you want to have your project URL. You want to have the job description or the project description. So same thing you have in your resume. You can put all of that in LinkedIn. And you want to make sure so the cool thing about LinkedIn too is that even if you only have a couple of projects on your resume, because they're your most polished projects or whatever the case may be. LinkedIn is the place where you add like your passion project. So if you created an app even before Lambda, and it was like a really simple app, but you created it, it was self-taught, you did it yourself, put that on LinkedIn. You want to LinkedIn is where you can go and brag about yourself, basically. So resume, you may not have room or it may not be relevant to add those passion projects, but on LinkedIn, add everything. Okay, go back to this. So same thing. So kind of we were talking about with education, I was telling you on your resume, you don't really need to add any of these things. On LinkedIn, you can add whatever you want to. You can say that you were a member of an organization or you got this and this certification. Same thing with volunteer work. You want to put all the things that you can't put on your resume should go on your LinkedIn. Including interests. So when employers are looking at your LinkedIn, they can see when you've followed a company or when you've liked an article. So you want to make sure when you're doing this that you're liking relevant articles, that you're following companies that you're applying to, because it's going to show up here. And same thing with skills and endorsements. So I think when most people create their LinkedIn, it gives you like really basic ones like Microsoft Word or whatever. You want to make sure you're going in here and adding everything that you learned at Lambda. So React, everything that you learned, testing skills, everything, CS fundamentals. You want to add these things under feature skills, and you want to try to get people to endorse you because it looks good on your LinkedIn. And make sure, because you can actually change the order of these. So when you add them, make sure you're putting the most, I guess the fresh ones or the most relevant ones up at the top. So like React should be at the top somewhere for Lambda students. So again, recommendations, it's always good to have at least a couple recommendations, and you can actually go and ask to be recommended. I would say try to get recommended from like a prior manager, even an instructor at Lambda, and even Courtney and myself, like we'll recommend you guys. You want a recommendation though, because it's basically like a referral that you don't have to necessarily like put on a piece of paper. It's just on your LinkedIn and people can see that. Obviously make sure you're getting a good referral. Whoever you're asking to recommend you, make sure you have a good relationship with them. But it's always good to have a couple of recommendations. Join your alumni group. Lambda is going to be expanding in the years to come. It's so important to join your alumni group. A lot of your fellow classmates have already gotten jobs. It's a good way to connect with them and to stay connected and be like, hey, heard there's a job at this company, hook me up. But you always want to join your alumni group for sure. A lot of you too have not really used LinkedIn, so you're not going to have a ton of connections. The best way to get your profile to be seen is to have more connections. Like the more connections you have, the more your profile will be seen. So you want to try, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of homework to try to get at least 50 connections plus. You 100% should be connecting with Courtney and myself. So definitely do that. Connect with each other, connect with anyone from Lambda. And then when we're going to get into this further down the line, but even when you start applying to jobs and doing your job search, anytime you apply somewhere, you should also be connecting with a software developer in that company. So either a software developer on the team or a lead or a director or manager, you should be connecting with them. So your connections should be getting up there pretty soon. Cool. Well, that is it for that workshop for LinkedIn and for all of our workshops. So I want to give everyone a few minutes to ask questions. And also I want to make sure all of you guys are connecting with Courtney and I. So if you want to take a second and just connect with us on LinkedIn, that would be fantastic. And our names are up at the top here, Sabrina and Courtney. And ask questions if you have them.
So do you think that endorsements on the skills part of LinkedIn, do you think that's like a key factor of a LinkedIn profile page?
I wouldn't say it's a key factor, but it definitely helps. It's less about the actual endorsement and it's more about having the skill listed, because again, they're going to be doing keyword searches and they do the same thing on your LinkedIn. So when you have all of your keywords listed like that, it's going to pull up in their search. like literally, so LinkedIn Recruiter is typically what with recruiters use in companies. They can go in and type exactly what keywords they're looking for, and it pulls it from your skills first. So if you don't have it in your skills, it'll try to find it in your job description, but it's a little bit harder for it to parse from your job descriptions or your projects. So you want it in your actual skilled section.
So I have a question. When you're applying somewhere and you want to connect with like a developer or someone from the company, would you send them like a note with that? And like, if so, like, what would you say?
So you should always add a note. Don't ever just send a cold connection, unless you know that person, obviously, like if it's a friend or family member or whatever. But if you're sending it to somebody that you, like a company or someone from the company you just applied to, add a note. It'll always like prompt you to add a note anyway. So always add a note, and you can literally just say, keep it short and sweet. Hi, I recently applied to the front-end developer role at blank company. I would love to get some more details or any advice you may have. Send it. I look forward to connecting. Send it. So really just like short and sweet.
So you usually have to pay for that though?
No. So that's different. So it's not an in-mail, it's a connection note. So when you go to connect with someone, you don't have to pay to connect with people. It's the only time you have to pay is if you send an in-mail, which an in-mail is basically like an email.
Okay.
But you should have a few free ones, I think, with in-mails anyways. But yeah, no, you don't have to send with a connection. You just add a note, and you should just be able to send it. You can't do more than like 200 characters, I don't think, on a connection note.
How would you add the note though?
I'll show you.
I'm trying to talk to someone in this one job place, and I guess I didn't want to send a connection, but I didn't do anything. But I couldn't find. I tried sending an email, but I did pay for it.
No, okay. Yeah. So I'll show you. I'm going to share my screen really quick and show you what I'm talking about. So I will use one of you as an example, actually. I can't see my screen, so give me somebody's name.
Me, Roland. Roland Joseph Canuto.
Is that how you have it on?
Yeah. And Canuto, Roland Joseph Canuto. With a P8.
Spell your last name really quick.
C-A-N.
C-A-M?
N C-A-N U-T-O. I guess there's no Joseph. Just put Roland Canuto.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, LinkedIn is picky when it comes to. There we go.
That one. There you go.
Oh, I like how you have software engineer. I love it. Okay, so because you just added me, didn't you?
I did.
Okay, has anyone not added me yet?
You can track me. It's Eric Blunkus, ERIC. I don't think I've added you yet, so BLANCAS.
Are you a tech blogger, web developer?
Yeah, that's me, I think, yeah.
Okay. Cool. So Eric has not added me yet, right? So I go to connect, and it always says you can customize this invitation. So it'll always prompt you to do this. So you would add a note and just say, hi, Eric.
Okay. I was scared that every time you press connect, it would like send the invitation automatically.
No. So okay, the difference is you have to open up their profile to do this, because if you just hit connect when it's just like in the search, it'll just connect you automatically.
All right. Oh, that's what I did for yours. That's why I just like searched you up and like added you.
Yeah. So yeah, if you like right here, if you just hit connect, it's just going to connect you with them automatically. So when you're trying to connect with someone like from a company, open up their actual profile and then do it that way. Connect that way. Make sure you're adding a note. Cool?
Yeah, cool.
Does anybody have any other questions on resume or LinkedIn, personal statement, personal branding? All right, you guys. Well, Courtney and I are going to split you up between us two, and then we'll let you know basically who to get with. But this first meeting that you have with us, this one-on-one, is going to be about an hour long, so just make sure you have that time allotted for us. But we want you to bring your resume. So if you've been working on your resume, just give us whatever you have so far. We just want to see what you have so far, even if it's like the black and white resume that we talked about earlier. But we're going to go over your resume, do the resume review, but also get to know you guys a little bit. So it's going to be a little bit of a longer meeting. Let me go back to. All right. Well, I think that's it. If nobody else has any other questions, keep a lookout for. Probably Courtney will be posting a message. She's going to split you guys up, and we'll let you know what coach you're going to be working with. But we're going to give you the link to sign up with us. It's a Calendly link. Just make sure you know that it's going to be an hour. You'll see on there one-on-one, initial one-on-one, but it's an hour long. Come with your resume prepared. Even if it's an old resume, we just need to see. We need something to work off of, basically. But if you want to start working on it before then, I would check out Credle or Canva, any of the ones that we just talked about. But I will go ahead and send you guys basically the PDF version of this so you can take a look at it, look through it. But yeah, if that's all for today, we will be meeting with you guys coming up this week. You'll be hearing from us quite a bit now in the next few weeks. All right, y'all. Have a great afternoon. I'll give you back some time. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.